Welcome to Love in Life, a guide to a positive mindset. My aim is to show you that the key to a happier and more positive mind is to love the life you have. We will look at tips and tools you can use to improve your mindset, and the best thing is, we'll all be on this journey together. Hey everybody, how is everyone feeling? Before I get started, I just want to warn you, not only have I got the dogs here making their usual noises, but the kids are absolutely on one today. When they're on their video games, I don't know if anybody saw my video that I posted on Instagram the other day, but one of them was in the background yelling at his friends, and oh God, it's doing my absolute head in. So yeah, I do apologise if anybody hears any yelling. They just get so wrapped up in them, but at least it keeps them out of my way whilst I'm recording, I guess. You'll be pleased to know I am going to take them out this afternoon when I finish recording. I'm going to take them swimming or something, because we've still got, what are we now, 3 weeks into the summer holidays? Maybe even 2 weeks, I don't know. I'm losing all track of time at the moment, to be honest with you. So how's everyone's week been since I published my episode last week? I had the loveliest message from somebody messaged me to say that they've binged all my podcasts, which is exactly what I was dreaming of. I think I mentioned that in one of my previous episodes. So somebody messaged me to say that they'd listened to all my episodes and that they think my positivity is a breath of fresh air. And I just wanted to share that with you because, you know, that is my absolute aim for this podcast. That's my absolute aim in life at the moment, to be honest with you, is just to bring a little bit of positivity, because I don't think you can ever have too much positivity, and there's far too much negativity going on in this world right now. So by receiving that message, that just absolutely makes my day, and it makes all of this worthwhile. So Shannon, thank you so much for reaching out and sending me that message. It means the absolute world. So back in my earlier episodes, I promised you that I was going to tell you the positive things that happened to me and the negative things that happened to me. So I've got a little story for you. I was out on Saturday night with some friends, and don't get me wrong, I'd had a couple of drinks, but I wasn't, I'd had a couple of cocktails. I wasn't drunk, so I really don't think that's got anything to do with it. But hey, I know alcohol does lower our inhibitions somewhat, however much we've had. But anyway, I tripped over the curb, and I fell absolutely flat on my face. So, when we have these things happening to us, things flash before your eyes, don't they? Like, I'm just trying to remember back now and what was going through my head at the time. I'm thinking back now, why the hell didn't I put my hands out? Because my knees copped it first, and then I went down on my face. And I might, if I'm feeling brave enough, I might post a picture on my stories on Instagram. So if you want to see the state of me, then have a look on Instagram. So yeah, why the hell didn't I put my hands out? And my husband pointed out, I wonder if subconsciously I was trying to protect my hand. As you know, I broke my hand a few months ago. I also dislocated my shoulder, 2.5 years ago. So subconsciously, I am trying to protect both of my arms. So is that why I didn't put my hands out? If I would have put my hands out, then I would have missed my face. I don't know. Who knows? As I've said before, these things, they all happen. And, whether they happen for a reason or not, we don't have the answer for that. But I just think, we have to find some kind of positive out of every situation. So it got me thinking, why am I so accident prone lately? I've just told you about a few accidents I've had recently. That's 3 that I can think of. 3 quite big things that have happened within the last 3 years. And it got me thinking, I wonder if it's got anything to do with my age. So I'm, as you know, some of you might know, some of you might not, I've just turned 40. And I'm going to probably overshare quite a lot in this episode, but, I'm going to have to do... Sorry, I don't know what happened there. It stopped recording for some reason. So I'm probably going to overshare quite a lot, but I feel that in order for me to really talk to people, I have to be open and honest. So here we go. So probably about 3 years ago, I started noticing a few symptoms that could potentially be linked to like what you could say are menopausal symptoms. So obviously I've done a lot of research into, what the symptoms are, what the stages of menopause are. Last year I did have, at this point, I just want to say, men, if there's any men listening, please keep listening, because obviously this isn't going to affect you, but it's going to affect somebody in your life. So whether it's your mum, your partner, or your sister, it's going to affect you in some kind of way. And ladies of all age, if you're in your 20s or your early 30s, please carry on listening, because, this isn't just menopause I'm talking about. This is just hormones in general. Hormones affect our lives, especially women. So it's good to know how to deal with it. So anyway, as I was saying, last year, it got to the point where a few of my symptoms were getting so bad that it did make me contact the GP just to see if I could have a hormone check to see if it was potentially menopause on the way. And they did some blood tests on me, and it came back as inconclusive. Like the hormone that they look for, or the enzyme that produces the hormone, I think it is. I can't remember what it's called now, but they look to see how much of that is present in your blood. And mine were inconclusive. So it wasn't low enough to say that it's menopausal, but it wasn't high enough to say that it's normal. So they did offer me back for more tests to do it again. But I just think, well, what is actually the point? If it's inconclusive, if it's not high enough to say that it's not menopausal, then that to me says that it's probably on its way. So I'd rather just see if I can deal with it in my own way for now. Things might change over time, who knows. And I would like to stress as well that obviously everything I talk about in this episode, I am going on my own experiences. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical profession in any way, shape or form, as I have stressed to you before. So I purely talk on my own experiences, because then I know that what I'm talking about is real. Do you know what I mean? And if anybody can relate to this, then brilliant. If I can make it easier for anybody, for them to deal with any sort of hormonal imbalance, symptoms that go with that, then brilliant. That's my aim. So why have I decided to talk about this in this episode? Well, when I was doing my research the other day, when I was wondering if my fall or my clumsiness had anything to do with my age, I found out that clumsiness is in fact a symptom of perimenopause. Brilliant, I hear you say. Another symptom for me to have to try and overcome. So, why does this happen? Well, apparently, the falling levels of hormones in your body, the hormones that are produced, which make you ovulate and make you have periods, basically. The falling levels of estrogen and progesterone can cause a loss of coordination. So whilst, like I said, yes, I was drinking. I hadn't had many, and I know what I know my limits. Do you know what I mean? I can look back and I think, oh shit, I drank too much. And at that point, I certainly hadn't. So again, disclaimer, like I said, I know that it does lower your inhibitions. I do appreciate that. But looking at the other falls and, like, why am I doing that? Why am I having all these accidents all of a sudden? So that could be one reason why. And you may be interested to know what other symptoms I've been experiencing and how I've overcome them. Now, I'm not one to go around telling everybody what my symptoms have been unless it's relevant. And in this case, I do think it's relevant. So my biggest, my first symptom that I noticed was having irregular periods. And 1 month they would be 30 odd days apart. And then another month they would be down to like 21 days. And it would be really sporadic. So there was no pattern in my cycle, basically. And this happened for probably a couple of years. And gradually it's the space in between my periods has got less and less. So I'm now down to about 21, 22 days, which, it's not great, but at least it's become a little bit more regular now, a bit more consistent. So I have got a lot more hormonal changes to deal with. Sorry, Craig. But yeah, I do. Now I know what's coming and when and why. I do find them a little bit more easy to manage. I think just by knowing it's happening or why you're feeling hormonal, we all know what it feels like to be hormonal. Mood swings and emotional. It's good to have a reason why those things are happening. So it does make it more acceptable and more manageable if you know why and when to expect it. Another symptom I then started to experience was night sweats, and at one point they were so bad. I haven't had like hot flushes throughout the day yet, so I can't say anything about that, I'm afraid. But I was having night sweats probably about 18 months ago that started. No, it's probably longer than that, actually, thinking about it. I think it started a lot earlier than what I realised and when I actually started noticing it. Does that make sense? But I really started sort of linking the two together about 18 months ago. And I would literally wake up in a pool of sweat. It's really gross, I know, but we all have to deal with it. So there's no point in not talking about it. Somebody needs to be open about symptoms so as other people know what to expect. So obviously there are ways to manage it. I think being hydrated more definitely helps, which is definitely one of my issues. So I do make a conscious effort to hydrate myself more now. This, however, does lead to needing to get up for a wee more in the night, which for somebody who wees a lot anyway after having kids is not ideal, but it is what it is. So that's another symptom, is getting up for a wee more frequently in the night. As I said, I was drinking more water, so that's probably why. But you do also need to pee more frequently. Now, the final straw for me before I ended up going to the GP was when I started to wet myself. It's not an easy thing to talk about. I don't mind talking to people about it who I'm close to, but this is particularly difficult for me, so bear with me. I was finding that when it always happened to be roughly about the same time in the day. So for me, the worst time for me would be when I was walking back from the school run in the morning. And I would always make sure I went to the toilet before I left. And the school isn't a million miles away. It probably takes 15 minutes to walk there. So, we're talking 30, 35 minutes out of the house. And by the time I was halfway home, sometimes I would have to sit on the floor so as to try and stop anything coming out. But on a few occasions, I did sort of walk up the pathway, and by the time I'd put the key in the door, it was too late. So that was the point for me where I really felt like I needed to do something about it. Now, obviously, as I said, I did the blood tests for the hormones and it came back inconclusive. Now, after speaking to the GP with it, I did say to her, I'm happy to accept that whether I'm perimenopausal or not, it's certainly on the way. Do you know what I mean? And that's fine. What's the point in trying to deny it? It's fine. That's what stage of life I'm at. Yes, it's a little bit early than the average person. I think the average age is around about 45 to 47 to start experiencing symptoms. And at the time I was, 37, 38. So it is significantly earlier. But you do find that these things are genetically linked. And I always knew that my mum had started experiencing the sort of perimenopausal symptoms at around about the same age. I think she said she was 38 when hers began. So, I don't need any more answers than that, really, if I'm honest. What I do need is how to deal with it. So the GP offered to sign me up to some bladder workshops that they hold. And it was all about retraining your bladder. And I thought, if there's ways to retrain your bladder, I'm sure I can do this myself. And if that's what it takes, then that's what I'm going to try and do. So I used my knowledge on, the law of attraction and visualization to try and help me retrain my bladder. So how did I do this? So as I said, I had already learned a lot about visualization and practiced a lot of visualization with success. So I started to visualize myself when I could feel the need to pee coming on when I was walking home. I would visualize myself calmly walking up my garden path without having to cross my legs and, ram the key in the door. I would just visualize myself walking up calmly and getting to the toilet in time. And don't get me wrong, it took a long time to actually take effect, but it did gradually, the problem did gradually start getting less and less. So I still need to pee lots now, but it's so much more manageable. It just becomes second nature now. I've got myself into that habit of when I feel it coming on, I visualize the end result. I visualize what I want to be the end result, should I say. So yeah, like I said, calmly visualize yourself walking up the garden path, because we all know that's when it starts coming on. It's when you start, walking up your street or walking up your garden path. And that to me says that it's all mindset anyway. So if your mindset is what brings these things on, then surely your mindset can help us deal with these problems. Does that make sense? And I also think that by acknowledging these things that are happening in our bodies and honouring them and what our body is trying to tell us, I think it just helps accept what's happening in your body, whatever that might be, whether it's, a hormonal change or an illness of some sort. What is your body trying to tell you? I could be I could be freaking out right now that, oh my God, I'm getting old. But I'm not at all. Like, age does not bother me. In fact, the older I'm getting, the more wiser I am, and the more I get to know myself, and the more I get to know my body, and the more I get to know, what's going on inside my head. And I just know myself better nowadays. Does that make sense? So, that's just my way of using my positive mindset to deal with changes that happen. So it doesn't necessarily make them go away completely. It just makes them more manageable, I think. So alongside mindset, there's also a few lifestyle changes, or not necessarily changes, but things that we can enhance in our lifestyle to make hormone changes more manageable. So, and these things also help with our mindset as well. So, all these things work together to make our life easier and more manageable and more enjoyable. So exercise and meditation, I've already discussed why meditation is good for us, good for our minds to some capacity. But obviously it can also help in this situation that I'm discussing today by reducing irritability. So obviously when you're exercising and you're engrossed in what you're doing and you're putting effort into something, then your mind is elsewhere. If you have any frustrations, you're taking your frustrations out on your exercise. Yoga, I find particularly helpful because it sort of combines exercise and meditation into one. And a lot of people don't necessarily associate yoga with exercise, because obviously it's not a sort of cardiovascular exercise. But let me tell you, when you do yoga properly, then you do feel it for days after. So I strongly advise trying yoga if you haven't tried it. But it also helps reduce weight gain, because that's one of the things, obviously one of the symptoms of menopause can be weight gain, because your body changes, your hormones change, and that affects how you absorb calories as well. So that is something that we need to be mindful of, is burning more calories. And obviously we can do that by exercising. Obviously you can reduce the amount of calories that you eat as well, but I don't know, I prefer to burn off what I intake, if that makes sense. So diet as well is another lifestyle habit that we can get into that can help manage the changes in our bodies. And by diet, I don't mean bloody Atkins or Weight Watchers or anything like that. I just mean being more mindful of what we put in our bodies. So the good thing for me about being vegan, I'm not promoting veganism here. Everybody has their own choice. I'm not a vegan activist. I am very pro plant-based though. But one thing I will say about being vegan is you have to be really mindful of what you're putting in your body, because obviously, we're told how good things like dairy is for bones and things like that. You have to be really mindful about replacing the protein and the calcium into your diet. So one thing that I do eat a lot of is lentils. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Lentils. And I also eat a lot of like beans and chickpeas, and not only are these things really high in protein, but they're also quite high in estrogen as well. So if you have any kind of hormonal imbalance, and it's worth researching what foods you can eat to replace the hormones, or to help increase the levels anyway, not necessarily replace them. Obviously, there are things out there that you can get, like HRT, which is hormone replacement treatment. Me personally, I'm not saying I would never take it, but until I really feel the need, unless my body's really telling me that I should, then I would rather find alternative ways to try and manage my symptoms. Just realised that I didn't mention how I manage the night sweats. So I've now, I think by tracking it, obviously tracking is so important so as you know what happens and why. Obviously it does help if you have some kind of regularity, which if you don't, which I didn't for a long time, it's only in the last 5 months, 6 months that I've had a bit more regularity. Obviously my periods are closer together, but they're more regularly closer together, if that makes sense. So if you're able to track what happens at what point in the month or in your cycle, then that does help. So I did notice that the night sweats come for me about 5, it tends to be about 5 nights before the start of my cycle now. So I just make sure that I'm aware that this is coming, and I simply make sure I wear pajamas to bed. I know it sounds really simple, but for years I didn't wear pajamas to bed. But now I do. It kind of soaks up the sweat, which it kind of sounds counterproductive. Wearing pajamas because you're hot, you'd think you'd need to strip off, but actually wearing pajamas soaks it up. So there we go. That's what I do to manage that. And I will say that since I've been more mindful of what is going on in my body when it's happening, it seems to have, the problems seem to have weakened as time goes on. So, you know, symptoms that were really strong at one point, they're not quite as strong as they were, say, even a year ago. So there we go. That is my take on how I use my mindset to just make life a little bit easier when you're going through changes. Obviously, all these things help with other things that are going on in your life as well. It's not just going through menopause. So that's why I wanted to make a point of saying earlier on in the episode to carry on listening, because obviously all these tips we can use in so many different areas of our life. So I just want to go back quickly to Saturday night when I fell over. Something else that I'd tried doing. Obviously, I also mentioned earlier that I'd posted a live video on my Instagram. And in that video, I told people that I'd had a headache when I woke up in the morning and that I was using my amethyst to try and get rid of my headache, which is the first time I've done that. And it worked. And I also read that day that amethyst could be good for making hangovers a little bit easier. I don't know. I don't want to say no hangover because I don't think there's any such thing for me if I've been drinking. But yeah, so I decided it would be a good idea to go out with my amethyst in my pocket. And I also went out with citrine as well. So if anybody is into crystals and is hearing this and it is ringing alarm bells for you, please do let me know, because I'm also wondering if that might have something to do with it as well. Amethyst and citrine. I thought it would be good because the detoxifying properties of amethyst. I thought it would be a good idea, but maybe I should have waited until the following day. I don't know. If you could let me know, that would be amazing. If anybody knows the answer to that question, that would be amazing if you could let me know. Right, so before I go today, I just want to ask you to, I always give you an exercise or something to think about for each episode. So this week, what I'd like you to do is to think about something that happens in your cycle. If you're a woman, if you're a man, then just ignore this. But if you are a woman and you're listening to this, then think about a particular time in your cycle that you find particularly difficult to manage, whether it's your mood swings or maybe you have started noticing some perimenopausal symptoms. Have a think of something that happens this week and see if you can use one of my mindset tips, or see if you can use visualization to just try and help get you through that rubbish time, because, you know, it's not nice for any of us. But if you are able to use mindset to help you through it, I just think that makes life much more pleasurable for you and probably those around you as well, if you know what I mean. So yeah, have a great week, everybody. And don't forget to share this if you can. If you know anybody who might be struggling with symptoms at the moment or struggling with mindset at the moment, please, please, please do share my podcast with people. To anybody that you can think of that you might be able to tell them in person, or you can obviously share the link to my podcast on Spotify or Apple, however you listen to it. I really, really, really appreciate it when people recommend me and when people review me and when people send me lovely messages. It just makes me want to keep going, and I want to keep going anyway. But you know what I mean? It means the absolute world to me. So please do spread the love and spread my words to people. And I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.